All right, welcome back. Watkins Glen National, I believe, is this configuration. Um, it has been a long time since I've been to Watkins Glen, and I've never driven it in the Ray. If you are new to iRacing, this is a really good track. If you are experienced in iRacing and you've driven here a lot, I'm not sure if it's a track update or if it's just the Ray. It feels very different than what I remember driving it in other cars. So if you looked at the thumbnail, a little dare there to use the iRacing setup. I will say that the iRacing setup actually isn't too bad except for one thing. It has a very tall gear stack. I might be a total fool, but the Ray just is not pulling up the hills with a very tall gear stack. In a draft, maybe this is going to be different situation where you do want that very tall gear stack, but even with a tall gear stack, you are not getting to the rev limit uh, going up the hills. If there is a draft, you probably will be getting to the rev limit. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see if I'm a nut or not. All right, so setup goes 30 mils in the front. There are a lot of curbs here to go over. You do not want the car as low as it goes here. These curbs you want to go over many of them, and you need a little bit of height not to be bottoming out and running into that trouble. ARB 0, damper compression 20, that's pretty standard. Rebound stiffness 0. Brake bias 57% for me. For you, that's a different number. Um, I do like to load up the front end. I will say this, I know most of you always leave comments that my brake bias is way too high. It seems the vast majority of people are in the low 50s. Give this a try. Honestly, give this a try. With the higher brake bias, you are going to load up the front end more, and having a better turn in, having the front end loaded up really does have an effect here. So maybe give that a try. Spring rates, low as they go. 22 in the front, 35 in the rear. Camber, oh my god, look at this. -2 on the left. I don't think I've ever had the camber that high, and I don't think iRacing's ever allowed me to have the camber that high. You know my channel, not symmetrical. 1.8 on the right. Toe in 1.3, go with the higher values if you want to keep the camber symmetrical. Toe in 1.3, that is just to give it a little bit more turn in, yeah, and help with the braking a little bit. But this is not really a hard braking track. Yeah, spring rates slow as they go in the rear. Camber, it is symmetrical in the rear, 1.4 on each side, and toe in 0.2, again just to help with braking a little bit. Tire temps here are pretty high, so the toe ins are turned down, and there also is big straights, so having a lot of toe in probably gives you a little more resistance. Ride height 39 in the rear. You want that rear a little higher than the front. The iRacing setup has the rear lower than the front, which is awfully weird. ARB 10, that is turned up from the iRacing setup. You know my channel, usually I have that cranked, but on this track, lots of high speed corners, and having that ARB cranked is making that back end a little too loose. But you could give it a try if you find the car does not have enough rotation. You could bump that up to 15 or 20 if you're daring. Damper compression 6, that's pretty standard. Rebound stiffness is down a little bit, 16. Yeah, just to get the weight transfer more to the rear a little faster, because there is a lot of places here to be getting on the power nice and early, and you want that rear not to be spinning. Fuel, 14 liters. I always get a lot of comments about there's not enough fuel, people running out of fuel. 14 liters will do it for me. For you, maybe not. 15 liters if you want to be safe. And then, of course, the big thing I talked about, tall gear stack. Not very tall. Tall gear stack still has enough power to climb up the hills a bit without sort of dropping the RPMs and getting stalled out in the mid RPM range. So tall it is. We'll see. Let me know if I'm a fool. All right, we'll get into the track guide. We'll run it out, or we'll hit them in slow-mo the corners and then run it out at full speed. Track is 32 degrees, testing is 35%, that's my usual. Alright, coming into turn 1, looking for the 200 board and the 100 board, getting on the brakes just after the 200 board, about midway, 150 board, maybe something like that. Pretty hard on the brakes. Down into second gear. Obviously you can come in hotter, but it is not going to be faster. Releasing the brakes. This is a very tricky corner. If you are on the brakes and turning the wheel, you are spinning out. And picking up the throttle early, way early. I should have been probably full throttle about here, but I was a little trepidatious. Picking up the throttle, and that's really going to get you the speed climbing up this hill. You have to be on the throttle before the apex, otherwise you are in big trouble. You can run out onto the pavement here. You will pick up an X. It will actually make you faster, so look out for that. But if you are over past the white line, you do get a slowdown, so watch out for that. And then just working your way up the gears, you can be on the curbs here. It's not really too disruptive, but you do want to get make your way back over to the pavement. So, and just watch the wheel inputs here. If you're turning the wheel a lot, you are going to scrub some speed. The Ray does not have a huge amount of power here. And the other thing to look out for is these curbs. I found that if you get on the curbs here, again, the Ray being a little limited on power, getting on the curbs is actually going to scrub you a little bit of speed off. So watch out for that. So yeah, just trying to straight line it. Here is the biggest passing opportunity and the biggest crashing opportunity. Looking for the 300 board in fourth gear, and yeah, you can see just got to the rev limit here at about 400-ish board, but going up the hill you are actually accelerating, you're not sort of stalling out, so that's where the tall gear stat comes in. So looking for the 300 board here, just a little bit of a lift, rolling the car in a little bit up at throttle just to keep that back end happy, and getting tight up against the barrier here, shifting down into third gear just as you approach the curbs, and then just a little bit of throttle as you come off the curbs just to steady the car. Again, minimize the wheel inputs here, just try and straight line it as much as possible. Getting off that second curb, again picking up the throttle, lots of throttle this time, you need to pin it now, and just grazing the edge of the curbs here, trying to straight line it as much as possible. And then yeah, just keeping that throttle pinned. I did get a little fearful here and did lift a bit, but really should have been on the throttle. Back on the power and coming around the bend here. Now as you come around the bend, this is where you do want to lift a little bit. No brakes, just a little bit of a lift just to get that front end turning in better. And then at the red mark here, the caution lights, the safety lights, picking up the throttle, a little late on the throttle pickup here. And then yeah, full throttle. Once the tires are warm, cold tires here, you are going to have to be a little bit more cautious. First couple laps things are a fair bit greasier, and then just full throttle and have trust in the car that it will keep you on track. If I'd picked up the throttle earlier, I would be on the pavement here, and that is quite alright. Use all of that track if you like. And then up into fourth gear. Now this one's nasty. There is a kink in the track. There is not a kink, but a little pavement jut out here with a sewer thing, a sewer grate. This is going to be hard to see if there's a car in front of you, but this is what you're looking for. Getting on the brakes just before it, shifting down into third, braking hard and braking early, and then releasing the brakes. Again, if you are hard on the brakes here and turning the wheel, you are spinning out. And then picking up the throttle nice and early. Yeah, and just don't stomp on it, just managing the throttle. You can graze these curbs a little bit, but be careful. It can kind of grab your tire and want to spin you out, so just be a little careful getting on those curbs. And yeah, full power. and letting the car run out wide. Have trust in the car that it will hold, especially when the tires are warm. There may be a little bit of a lift there when the tires are cold, and then use all the curb on exit. So looking for the 100 board, just before, just before it. Real time, it looks like I'm braking at it. Hard on the brakes, down into second gear, and then picking up the throttle nice and early. Again, if you're on the brakes and turning the wheel, you are going to be spinning through here. And then just gingerly picking up the throttle. Don't just stomp on it because you can spin out still. And using all of the track on exit. Very important to use all the track here on exit. Do not touch the grass. You're going to have a bad day if you touch that grass. And yeah, just use all of the track. It will give you a better run through here. Surprisingly, quite a bit better run. Big passing opportunity for this one too. Looking for the 200 board and the 100 board. Just before the 100 board, about 150, getting on the brakes, shifting down into second, again hard on the brakes so you can release the brakes as you turn in and pick up that throttle nice and early. Nice and early, and it is, if you miss the apex here, not so punishing, but it is faster to make sure you are tight up against that curb. And get on the throttle nice and early because you can use a lot of track out here. Again, you can get onto the pavement here on the left. If you get too far over, you do get an X, but you can use a lot of this pavement on exit. And then shifting up into third. Now another very nasty braking turn-in marker is the kink in the track up here. Car in front of you, that is going to be hard to see, so just watch out for that. Cold tires, you may want to shift down into second here, but just before that kink, getting on the brakes, down into second. Not a huge amount of brakes. This is uphill. The shifting down and going uphill is going to slow the car down quite a bit, and make sure you pick up that throttle. Very easy to lose it up here. If you get that throttle on, that back end is going to be a lot steadier and grip up a lot faster and better. And then again, picking up the throttle well before the apex, being at full throttle. You can lose a lot of time through this corner. This is a very tricky corner, probably, in my opinion, the trickiest corner on the track. And you gotta have faith, again, in the car. It will hold. Do not get on this grass. That is a bad day. But get onto that curb, make use of all of the track. And looking for the 100 board here. Again, cold tires, probably a full lift. Warm tires, just a bit of a lift. So at the 100 board, just lifting, turning in, and just a little bit of a lift. Just get the car turned in. Make sure you get into the apex, into the camber of this corner, and then picking it up full throttle. And again, lots of track here to use if you need it. If you go real wide, yes, you will get an X, but if you get on a bit onto this pavement, no X, no problem. You just have to get yourself way over to the left, so just be aware of that. And then guess what? You're not looking at the end of the barriers for this one. If you're braking and turning in at the end of the barriers here, or at the end of the tires, that's too early. Don't do it. Looking for the sign here. The sign is what you're looking for. In real time, it looks like I'm braking at the sign. Slow-mo, it's a little bit before. Hard on the brakes in third gear. Well, not hard on the brakes. Yeah, just a medium amount of brakes. Very important not to brake too much here because the RPMs will drop, and if the RPMs drop, then you are compromised on exit. Cold tires, you will probably want to downshift into second for this one. Yeah, but picking up the throttle nice and early before those RPMs drop too low, and then you are off to the finish line. Full throttle nice and early, well before the apex, and using all of the track on exit. Again, use these curbs, use the pavement here. Obviously, watch out for that wall. It is unforgiving, but there is lots of room out here. I didn't even use it all. So that's a 2 minute point one. Probably with the draft, definitely going to be seeing the 159s for sure. So good luck out there. We'll see you on track. I'll run this out at full speed.